It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of October 22nd, 2004. We got 4 movies to look at today, so a lot of films to get to. Let's go ahead and jump on into it, and we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Sarah Michelle Gellar in the horror movie The Grudge. So in the movie, Sarah Michelle Gellar plays an American nurse who moves to Tokyo and encounters a supernatural spirit who is vengeful and often possesses its victims. A series of horrifying and mystifying deaths start to occur, with the spirit passing its curse onto each victim, and now Karen must find a way to break the spell before she becomes its next victim. This is based off of a Japanese horror movie, which is actually directed by the same man who made that film in particular, Takashi Shimizu. So, that's something that The Ring didn't have. Ring had Gore Verbinski doing the first movie, which I think they kind of took note of what The Grudge was doing and thought, for the sequel, let's have the original director for The Ring come in for the sequel, even though we're still a couple months away from that, and that one's not going to be anywhere near as good as the original Ring. But this, I'll say this, the movie is not perfect. It's a film that is very flawed in a number of different aspects, but I will tell you this, where the film lacks in the story department, the film excels in the scares, because, man, there's a lot of creepy moments in this movie, and there are a lot of really good, effective jump scares in this movie. Like, even for someone like me who does not like a lot of horror movies, I was jumping several times during the course of this movie. And, I mean, it really is a film that works so well with the visuals. The visuals pretty much do the storytelling for you, and, like, the creep factor is just all over the place. Like, that scene where one person, played by Katie Strickland, like, she's going back to her apartment, and then this spirit follows her back to the apartment, and when she gets taken out, that's one of those really great jump scares in particular that this movie has. There's a couple of them that really weren't as good as I think they were setting up to be. Like that thing at the end of the trailer with, the hand coming through the back of Sarah Michelle Gellar's head. Like, that one didn't really affect me all that much in particular. That one really wasn't as scary as some of the other scares in the movie, because the movie does have a legitimately good amount of good jump scares in particular, and I think that's what makes this movie more memorable, are the jump scares in here. The terrifying aspects of it are very good in general. The story is not that great overall. It's a film that is very much kind of a mediocre storyline here. You don't really learn about a lot with why this thing is particularly doing this, but and there's never really any sense that they're able to fix the problem here, because this thing's going to keep coming at you no matter what happens. And like I said, the greatest aspects about this movie are the scares in this movie, because the scares in this movie are legitimately good and terrifying most of the time. Other than that, though, I don't know. It's a movie that really works mostly because of the scares. Other than that, though, everything else is kind of mediocre in general. But I would say I'd recommend it just for the scares alone. But other than that, though, this isn't something you're going to want to watch on repeat several times when you watch it, and then afterwards, just kind of like, yeah, it's not a great movie story-wise. From the scare perspective, that's where the movie really shines, and I think that's really the one thing you take away from this. Around Halloween, it's good for a one-time watch every Halloween, but other than that, though, you don't need to watch this more than once every year. I'm just saying, but let's get to something that is actually really, really scary. Something that's even scarier than The Grudge. How about a Christmas movie released before Halloween? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get to that movie, the infamous Surviving Christmas. I think Tony Soprano is pretty much everybody who sees this movie and sees how terrible Ben Affleck is. You want to hit him on the head too and wish that he was dead. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is that movie. This is the worst thing, the bottom of the barrel that Ben Affleck has ever done. Geely was one of those movies where, yeah, it was seen as one of the film that killed Ben Affleck's career, but he was at least trying in that movie to try to save it. But this is the bottom of the barrel. So he plays a wealthy Chicago ad executive who has long avoided the family traditions of Christmas, but has been dreaded being alone on the actual day. So when his tropical Christmas vacation with his girlfriend, played by Jennifer Goodwin, falls through and Missy breaks up with him in the process, a self-therapy session leads Drew to decide and relive his best childhood Christmases. With his loved ones long gone, he decides to rent a family with the Valcos, the current owners of his childhood home in suburban Chicago. Tom Valco, played by Gandolfini, wants nothing to do with Drew until an exorbitant amount of money is involved. I think it's $50,000 or something like that. They draw up a contract which expires at the end of Christmas night. What Drew doesn't or refuses to realize is that the Valcos are having their own problems with his presence exasperated. Can the Valkos endure their unexpected guests? If they can, will the money solve their problems? Meanwhile, will Drew come to realize what he wants in life and how to achieve them? And why the hell is this movie? And the biggest question of all, why the hell is this movie being released 2 weeks before Halloween? That's something I never got with this particular movie. This is apparently a movie that was in production all the way back in May of 2001. In May of 2001, Ben Affleck agreed to star in this movie when it was at Columbia Pictures. And then it shifted over to DreamWorks. Christmas movies like this don't usually take that much time to do unless it's like a high-concept movie. Like if it's the Santa Claus or Fred Claus, or, you know, these bigger budgeted movies. But does anything in this movie look big budget to you? No. Why is Ben Affleck being involved in this movie? This movie doesn't feel like a film that Ben Affleck should even be involved in with his rapport at that point. He's an Academy Award-winning actor and writer. He's written Oscar caliber stuff here. Like this is a role that should not have gone to Ben Affleck in the beginning. This should have gone to like a more comedic actor, somebody like who's a popular actor at the time. Somebody maybe like I don't know, a Ray Romano, or maybe someone from Friends, maybe a Matt LeBlanc, maybe a Matthew Perry. Like who hell. A David Hyde Pierce or Kelsey Grammer, people who were popular in sitcoms at the time. Kevin James probably could have made this work better, because he was on The King of Queens. Mike O'Malley from Yesteryear, Charlie Sheen, John Cryer. I'm just naming all these better people that could be involved in this movie, because Ben Affleck should not be in this role at all. This movie fails mostly because of him just having such a panic attack of a performance in this. Like, nothing about what this character does in this movie is sane. Nothing about what this character does makes any sense whatsoever. Yeah, you want to go back to where you spent your best times as a child, but you have to realize that you're interrupting a major family holiday, you get behind the family because this guy randomly shows up, and the first thing that he does, by the way, which that trailer does not show you. As soon as Ben Affleck gets to the house, you know what he does first? He takes the piece of paper, because this is what his therapist, played by Stephen Root, tells him to do. Go to his childhood home, take a piece of paper, set it on fire, and say, "I forgive you." Now, from the backside, if you're looking at the point of view of James Gandolfini and Catherine O'Hara, this looks like somebody who's literally about to burn your house down. So, in the trailer, it makes it seem like that James Gandolfini's an asshole. No, James Gandolfini's doing what he should have done in the first place, and knocking the shit out of the guy who's about to burn his house down. And by the way, it was $250,000, not $500,000. I'm reading it off of the synopsis here. But if those problems weren't enough, you can realize that there was somebody else in that trailer that wasn't really given a whole lot of attention, except you see her in the far right in the beginning of the trailer. Yeah, Christina Applegate is in this movie, and you would have never figured it out because she doesn't show up until about 45 minutes in the movie. When I saw this movie in a theater, which, yes, me and my sister saw this in the theater on opening weekend because, why not? I mean, this is one of those rare occurrences where the whole thing makes no sense whatsoever. We had no idea that Christina Applegate was in this fucking movie until we saw the movie. That's how bad this movie is, when you have somebody who was just in one of the biggest comedy hits of the year with Anchorman, and it barely mentions her, except on the poster for the movie. Like, the poster literally has her name in there, and yet she's nowhere to be found in the trailer, maybe because she realized, oh, this is a terrible movie, and I want nothing to do with it. And quite frankly, I can't imagine why anyone would want to be involved with it. But let's get to the crux of the problems with the movie. The release date. Why are they releasing this 2 weeks before Halloween? In the history of the box office, what movie has opened a Christmas movie before Halloween and has found success with it? Never. It has never happened because studios realize, the marketing department realizes that, oh wait, if we put a Christmas movie before Halloween, it won't make money over the course of the holiday season. Not DreamWorks, because I'm willing to bet you what DreamWorks probably thought when they bought this movie. They were going to have it be like a 2003 holiday release, and then they finally saw the movie, and it's just like, oh fuck no, we're not putting this out there. But instead of putting it out in the dumping month of January, which would make more sense, or if you want to even go down that right, do something like Christmas in July, slam it in the middle of the big summer blockbusters, and say, hey, we put it in the middle of some blockbusters. But no, somebody at DreamWorks had the bright idea to say, Christmas is starting to become, we're starting to see Christmas coming into stores in the months of September, October. Why don't we go ahead and put this movie out 2 weeks before Halloween? Because, it's a genius idea when you think about it, says the DreamWorks marketing executive. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Steven Spielberg, Jeffrey Katzenberg, David Geffen, they all looked at that guy and told him to get the fuck out of here after they did this because, yeah, not a shocker, the movie didn't do very well. It was in theaters for 2 weeks. It was literally out of theaters before Thanksgiving. So yeah, that was a mistake right from the get-go. And the film cost $45 million to make. Only brought back $11 million domestically. That's how horrible this movie was. That this movie was, and that's not even the worst part about it, because the funny thing about this movie in particular is that the fact that this movie did so poorly and was such a huge flop that, around this time, I should explain something here, because back in 2004, when it comes to new releases on physical media like DVD or VHS, you would usually wait about 4 to 6 months. It depends on how successful the movie was. Like, I think Shrek 2 came out in May of 2004 and didn't get a DVD release until November. Dodgeball didn't get a release on DVD until December, and even though the movie came out in June, sometimes they'll do it a little early on. Like back in the nowadays, you can kind of figure whenever a movie comes out, I think maybe 2-3 months after it comes out, and then they put it out on Blu-ray. Not back then. Usually it was 4 to 6 months, and then the time. Sometimes like Universal. Sometimes they'll put a movie out on DVD and Blu-ray 2 months after the movie came out. We just had that recently with The Fall Guy. But I bring this up because Surviving Christmas is one of those moments in history where, yeah, DreamWorks. You might not think DreamWorks is one of the big studios in general, but you've got to. I would think it's a big studio in general. So them to release a movie with a wide release like this, they released this movie not even 2 months after the movie came out in theaters. It was on DVD on December 21st, 2004. And if you want proof of that, here's the DVD. This is the original DVD release from December 21st, 2004. And I have the proof that this is indeed the date, because if you look inside of here, that's my original Walmart receipt, and look at the date on the bottom there. December 21st, 2004. I bought this because I couldn't believe that somebody had the nerve and the audacity to put this movie out on DVD less than 2 months after the movie came out in theaters. Now, for a Christmas movie in particular, usually they wait until the next Christmas season, because they usually don't make money after they come out in theaters. Nowadays, they've kind of scrapped that altogether and just put it out after a couple months, because we had that with The Grinch recently. But in the same year, Polar Express and Christmas at the Cranks came out in theaters. They waited a full year for the DVD releases of both of those movies. Not this little abomination, not this horrible piece of garbage right here. Yeah. And yes, I spent $20 on the DVD for this, because at the time I didn't think, you know what, I just had to get it for the history. But it's funny because I bought the Blu-ray version of this when my FYE was closing down. I only spent about 77 cents. It was less than $1 for a new Blu-ray. So, but yeah, I hold on to this as a part of history, because this is one of the first times a major studio, DreamWorks Entertainment, decided the movie was so terrible and so poorly mismarketed, they decided to throw this movie into theaters 2 weeks before Halloween, and then had the balls to put this out on DVD less than 2 months later. Let's put this into perspective here. Anchorman, which came out in July of 2004, which also starred Christina Applegate, had yet to be released on DVD at this point. Anchorman, I think, came out a week later, after Christmas came out. That's how badly they screwed this whole thing up. Yeah, so if that is not enough to make you say, wow, this movie is terrible, the movie is terrible on a number of different levels. You hate Ben Affleck. You hate him for everything he does in the movie. You want to feel more for the family in this situation, but then the family ends up being scumbags too, and like, everybody in this movie is just a dick. This movie just has this uncomfortable, dark sense of feeling to it. And if it was a black comedy, I think it could. If they had already said at the beginning, yeah, it's going to be that kind of a black comedy and marketed that way, then we probably could have accepted it more. But no, that trailer was way too happy. The trailer after that was also way too happy and peppy. So yeah, they completely lied to you on that front too. This is the bottom of the barrel for Ben Affleck. This is the movie where I think he realized, after this movie came out and it flopped as badly as it did, he realized, I have to change my career. I have to figure out a way to get back in the zeitgeist again and not be this person ever again. And that's when his career started to take a rebound, because a couple years later, he would slowly but surely have that comeback, starting with that performance in Hollywoodland. And then 3 years later, he would direct his first movie, Gone Baby Gone, which is a phenomenal film. He'd follow that up with The Town a couple years later, which was a great film. And then Argo was a great film too, won the Best Picture. So, yeah, this is the low point before we get to the comeback story that is Ben Affleck. And, yeah, but this was the bottom of the barrel. This movie right here, this film right here is the bottom of the barrel. Do you get it yet? You realize how bad this movie is? I think you get the point. So, yeah, I've already wasted 12 minutes of your time talking about this movie, which is more than I could say, which is probably more than anybody could really say about the movie in particular. But then again, if I had more time, I'd probably go into much greater detail about how terrible this movie is. But I've already wasted 12 minutes of your time here by doing this. Now we're heading to 13 minutes. So let's step away from the bad movie here, and let's get back to the good stuff again. Really good stuff. Let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is Alexander Payne's Sideways. So Sideways tells the story of a depressed teacher played by Paul Giamatti and his unsuccessful writer, along with his passive prime actor friend played by Thomas Hayden Church, who take a week-long road trip to Santa Barbara County wine country to celebrate Jack's upcoming wedding. And Sandra Oh and Virginia Madsen play two women they encounter during the trip, and they essentially have a relationship throughout the course of the film. This is also based off of the book of the same name by Rex Pickett, and it's one of the classic movies from both Alexander Payne and Paul Giamatti. This was the movie that really established Paul Giamatti as a star in the making, a film where, you know, he really shows off what he can do as an actor in general. And, you know, he had been in a couple of critically acclaimed movies. He had been stuff like American Splendor, even fun stuff like Big Fat Liar he was really good in. But this was a movie that really gave him a chance to really shine. Everybody here gets a really good chance to shine in here. Thomas Hayden Church is really good in the movie. Sandra Oh, who of course would later find success in the year with Grey's Anatomy, and then Virginia Madsen. Just a really good cast in general. A really engaging storyline here. One of the more mature road trip movies you'll ever see. And a film that really does take you by surprise. You really do get invested in these characters throughout the course of the movie, and you think you know where it's going to go, and it really doesn't go down that route you obviously expect it to go down, but it does much more differently than you would think a movie like this would do. And you're along with it because you really like these characters. You get so invested so quickly in what they're doing and how they're gonna move along in these situations here, and it just works really well. It's a really great film with a lot of strong performances all across the board. The visual look of the movie is impressive. Seeing wine country as a whole is very impressive to look at. I'm not even a wine person in general, but this is a movie that would make you want to start drinking wine so you could have adventures like this. I mean, it's that type of a movie that's really engaging, really compelling, and just keeps you invested in what's going to happen throughout the course of the film. And it was a massive hit. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director. Virginia Madsen got a Best Supporting Actress nomination. Thomas Hayden Church got a Supporting Actor. And it won Best Adapted Screenplay for Alexander Payne and Jim Taylor. It's a shame that Paul Giamatti and Sandra Oh didn't get mentioned in the categories for Best Actor or Actress, because they are really, really good in the movie and definitely deserve a lot more attention, especially Sandra Oh. I thought overall gave the better performance than Madsen. Madsen was good, but Sandra Oh really was aside from Paul Giamatti, she really was the breakout star of the film. But, yeah, not much more to say about this one. A classic movie, Sideways. So let's go ahead and move on to our last movie, and that is Christian Bale in The Machinist. That trailer is really good, by the way. I didn't get to show the end of that trailer, but the end of that trailer really creeped me out, which is something that happens in the movie itself. And if you ever wondered what Christian Bale was doing between Equilibrium and Batman Begins, there you go. Here it is right here. The Machinist stars Bale as the title character, a machinist struggling with paranoia and delusions after being unable to sleep for an entire year. And this was the movie that drew most of the attention because of Bale's commitment to the role, where he actually lost 62 pounds in preparation for the role, and it shows in this movie. Like, you can see just like how meek and how thin the guy is, and it's just like if anything else, you got to give it to him for for taking it to that next level. And if this was the movie that convinced Christopher Nolan to cast him as Batman, then more power to him, man. Which, I mean, then again, the movie did come out about 7 months before Batman Begins did. About that, 7, 8 months, 9 months, close to it. But yeah, it's a performance that if anybody in particular, if anybody in particular was ever doubting Christian Bale as an actor as a whole, after just watching an American Psycho or Equilibrium, this is a movie that definitely does show for him. And like I said, it's the commitment he takes to the role. He died it for 4 months, and he had the filming. He left with just 6 weeks. He had 6 weeks to pretty much regain all that mass so he could play Batman. I mean, that's a tall task to do, and he achieved it through weightlifting, binging on pizzas and ice cream, which for any person that seems like the American dream. But hey, more power to him, man. Because like I said, the fact that he turned in this great performance and then later turned in a great performance as Batman, not but less than a year later, that just shows you the commitment he brings to this performance in general. And the film is really bleak and dark. Like, this is a movie that is unlike Surviving Christmas, where it tells you right from the get-go that it's going to be a dark psychological trip, and it shows no mercy, and it really is an intense, terrifying film at times, where you really do get invested in the storyline, and you really are so compelled to watch this. This is directed by Brad Anderson, too, who would later do Trans-Siberian, the films he did before this, Next Stop Wonderland, Happy Accidents. Does not really get a lot of respect as a director. He's made a couple movies that weren't that great, most notably Halle Berry's The Call, which was really not a good movie in general. And this is probably overall his best film as a director. Jennifer Jason Leigh is also really good in the film. You see her in little bits and pieces there, but this also has a cast that includes Michael Ironside, Reggie Caffey, just a lot of good actors involved here. A dark, bleak feel overall, and one that just works very well to the film's advantage. It's a film that is very intense, very engaging to watch. Can't recommend this one enough. Definitely check out The Machinist if you haven't seen it. It's definitely one of Christian Bale's most underrated performances, bar none. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and the next time we meet, we will take a look at the last 3 films of October 2004, including Jamie Foxx's Oscar-winning performance as Ray Charles in Taylor Hackford's Ray, the movie that began the franchise 20 years ago. We have the beginning of Jigsaw with Saw, which is a much different movie, kind of like with Fast and Furious. It's a much different movie than what it has eventually become. But we also have Nicole Kidman in Birth. So we'll take a look at those 3 movies all on the next episode. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time. And until then, as always, take care.